I've always been the quiet one, the reliable one fading into the background like wallpaper in my own family's story. Teaching history in Fort Collins fills my days grading papers, sipping lukewarm coffee, listening to teenagers argue over dates and names. I love the routine the way it holds me steady. But deep down, I've wondered if I'm more than just good old Cami. My parents saw me as their dependable daughter. Dad with his stern rules, and Mom, soft but distant, always said I kept things together. My younger brother Chase was different. The golden child, a lawyer in Colorado Springs, with a smile that won every room. Mom, half Lakota, buried that part of herself. "It's just history, Cammy," she'd say, her voice closing off like a locked door. I never pressed her, afraid to stir up something raw. I spent my life smoothing edges, keeping peace, even when my heart felt like a tangled knot. At 39, I thought I knew who I was: a teacher, a daughter, a peacemaker. But that was before everything changed, before I realized how little I understood about myself, my family, or the legacy they left behind. The phone rang at dawn, shattering my sleep. A police officer's voice, cold and clipped, delivered the news. "Your parents? Car accident. They didn't make it." I sat frozen, the tick of my kitchen clock pounding in my ears. The next days blurred, planning the funeral, signing papers, calling relatives while Chase barely showed. He arrived once in a sharp black suit, offering quick condolences before vanishing. "I'm swamped, Cammy," he texted. I swallowed the hurt and carried on. At the lawyer's office, the air smelled of old paper and wax. I sat across from Chase, his face unreadable as the lawyer's glasses slid down his nose. His voice droned through the will. The Colorado Springs estate, all personal assets to Chase Halbrook. Chase nodded like it was expected. Then came my part. A cabin in Wyoming, no listed value of family significance. To Camille, a broken-down cabin out in nowhere. I stared at Chase, waiting for something, an explanation, a glance. "Guess Mom and Dad knew you liked quiet spots," he said, his tone light, almost patronizing. Those words cut deep, sharp as a blade. I clutched my crumpled tissue, my chest tight, wondering why my parents thought a crumbling shack was all I deserved. Back in my apartment, the silence was deafening. Eli, my boyfriend, paced the living room, his beer bottle clinking against the coffee table. "They screwed you over, Cammy. Why aren't you fighting this?" His voice was loud, frustrated. I tried to explain. I didn't want a battle, not now, not with grief choking me. But Eli wouldn't hear it. "You let everyone walk all over you. I need a woman who fights for herself." The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I stood alone, staring at a family photo on the shelf. Mom's gentle smile, Dad's stern jaw, Chase's easy grin, and me half hidden in the corner. My whole life I'd been the one to hold things together, to stay quiet. But now, with Mom and Dad gone, with Chase taking everything, with Eli walking out, I felt like I was unraveling. That cabin in Wyoming, some worthless pile of wood, kept nagging at me. Why did they leave it to me? What family significance could it possibly have? I grabbed my car keys, my hands shaking. Maybe that cabin held answers. Maybe it was time to find out what my parents saw in me, or what they didn't. The drive to Wyoming felt like running away, though I wasn't sure from what: Chase, Eli, or the ache in my chest. The highway stretched, endless sagebrush blurring past my window, the hum of my old sedan, the only sound. I gripped the wheel, the key to the cabin, dangling from its rusty ring. When I reached the dirt road, dust swirled under my tires, and the cabin came into view, a sagging pile of logs, its roof half-caved, windows cloudy with grime. I stepped out, the air sharp with pine and decay. The door creaked, protesting as I pushed it open. Inside, the smell of rotting wood hit me, and every step made the floor groan like it resented my presence. Dust floated in slants of light, settling on a broken chair, a cracked lamp. This was my inheritance. I ran my fingers over a splintered table, feeling more lost than ever. Mom and Dad thought this place was for me, but standing there, I felt like a stranger in their memory. Yet, something stirred a faint pull like a whisper I couldn't quite hear. I sank onto the floor, my parents' faces flashing in my mind, their voices silent. This cabin was all I had left of them. I had to know why. I started cleaning more to keep my hands busy than anything else. The broom scraped against the floor, stirring up dust that made me cough. I dragged a collapsed bookshelf from the wall, its wood crumbling under my touch. As it shifted, a hollow thud echoed behind it. I froze, heart pounding. I pushed harder, and part of the wall gave way, revealing a hidden door, its hinges rusted stiff. With a grunt, I pried it open, the squeal of metal piercing the silence. Inside was a small room, no bigger than a closet lit by a sliver of light. My breath caught. There, on a wooden shelf, sat a feathered headdress, its eagle plumes soft and proud. Beside it, a drum, its hide, taut despite years of neglect. Beaded moccasins pottery etched with spirals, a bundle of sage, all untouched like they'd been waiting. In the corner, a leather-bound journal lay half buried in dust. I brushed it clean, the leather cool under my fingers. The name on the cover stopped me cold. Thomas Black Elk, my mother's father. I'd never met him, only heard Mom's vague stories of a man who lived too much in the past. I opened the journal, its pages crackling, and saw words in English mixed with Lakota script. This wasn't just a cabin. It was a secret. I sat by the window, the journal in my lap, as wind whistled through the broken roof. My grandfather's words spilled out steady and clear, like he was speaking to me. He wrote of Lakota families forced from their land of sacred objects, hidden from government hands. They took our hills, our rivers, he wrote, but not our spirit. One entry hit me hard. To my granddaughter, who I'll never meet, one day you'll feel a hollow where your roots should be. Follow it home. My eyes stung. Mom never spoke of this. Not the headdress, not the drum, not her father's fight. I traced the Lakota words, my fingers clumsy, wishing I could read them. The drum seemed to hum faintly, or maybe it was my imagination. I thought of Mom, how she'd turn away when I asked about her heritage. Her voice sharp. Let it go, Cami. Had she known about this room? Had she hidden it? Or had she forgotten I closed the journal, my hands trembling? For the first time, I felt close to her, to him, to something bigger than myself. This cabin wasn't empty. It held my family's past, a past I was only beginning to understand. The cabin's silence felt heavier after I found the hidden room. I couldn't stop touching the journal, its leather worn soft under my fingers. I needed answers, so I called Dr. Marlene Eagleton, a Lakota historian at the University of Wyoming. Her voice crackled through the phone, warm but sharp, as I described the headdress, the drum, the pottery. She arrived the next day, her silver braid glinting in the sunlight. She stepped into the hidden room, her boots thudding softly on the creaky floor, and gasped. Camille. She set her eyes wide. These are sacred. The beadwork, the eagle feathers. They're not just artifacts. They're our history. She ran her fingers over the drum at its hide, whispering under her touch. She estimated their value, millions maybe, but her voice turned firm. These belong with the Lakota, not in some museum's glass case. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. Millions. I'm a school teacher scraping by. That kind of money could change everything. Words spread fast, too fast, through the university's network. Reporters called their voicemails piling up on my phone, each one buzzing like a fly I couldn't swat. I sat by the cabin's broken window, the wind hissing through, and stared at the journal. My grandfather's words echoed, "Follow it home." But what was home? I wasn't sure anymore. The crunch of tires on gravel snapped me out of my thoughts. Chase's sleek black SUV pulled up gleaming against the cabin's decay. He stepped out his polished shoes, absurd on the dirt path, and knocked sharply on the door. I opened it, the hinges squealing, and he flashed his lawyer smile. Cami heard you found some old junk. His voice was smooth, but it grated. He stepped inside, eyeing the hidden room's entrance. "Let's make this easy," he said, leaning against the splintered table. "I'll trade you the Colorado estate for this place, and whatever's in it. You're a teacher, not a historian. You don't need this." My hands clenched. The estate Mom and Dad's house full of memories was tempting. Chase kept talking his words sharp as glass. "Come on, you're not cut out for this. Let me handle it." I thought of his big house, his easy life, and how he'd always gotten the best of everything. The drum in the hidden room seemed to hum faintly, or maybe it was my pulse. I wanted to scream at him to tell him he didn't understand, but my throat tightened and I just stood there, the floor creaking under me. Chase left with a smirk, his engine roaring as he drove off. I sank to the floor, the journal in my lap feeling smaller than ever. That night, the cabin felt like it was closing in. I paced my footsteps echoing on the warped boards. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Eli's number. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was too weak to fight for myself. I dialed his voice rough when he answered. "Cami, you okay?" I mumbled about the artifacts, the money, the cabin. He softened, hinting we could start over if I sold it all. I hung up, my heart racing. Then I found a museum curator's card in my email left from a reporter's tip. I held it the paper crisp, promising a life without debt, without struggle. I could sell the headdress, the drum walk away. My grandfather's journal lay open on the table, its pages fluttering in the draft. I read an entry during the relocation era he'd refused gold for those same sacred drums. "They're not ours to sell," he wrote. "They're our soul." My hands shook. I lit a match, the flame hissing, and watched the curator's card burn its edges curling black. The smoke stung my eyes, but I felt lighter. I called Dr. Marlene instead, my voice steady for the first time. "I want to protect this," I said, "not profit from it." The cabin's silence felt different now, like it was listening, approving. After I burned that curator's card, the cabin felt alive, like it was breathing with me. I sat with Dr. Marlene under the sagging porch, the air thick with sage she'd brought. Her boots scuffed the dirt as she listened to my idea turning the cabin into a Lakota cultural retreat center, a place for language classes, beadwork, healing stories. "It's bold," she said, her silver braid catching the light. "But it's right." We drove to meet elders Rose White Deer and Thomas Redhawk at a community hall, its walls humming with voices. Rose, her hands gnarled like tree roots, took mine, her eyes deep and kind. "This is what your grandfather wanted," she said, nodding at the journal I carried. Thomas, his voice low, offered to teach drum making. Their trust made my chest ache like I was finally part of something bigger. Back at the cabin, I sketched plans by lantern light, the wick hissing softly. I saw kids learning Lakota words, elders sharing stories, the headdress safe, not sold. For the first time, I felt Mom's presence like she was watching proud. I wasn't just saving the cabin, I was building a home for my people, for myself. Chase didn't let go so easily. A week later, a letter arrived, its crisp envelope slicing my thumb as I tore it open. He was suing for co-ownership, claiming the will was vague, the cabin undervalued when Mom and Dad died. My stomach dropped, the paper crackling in my hands. I heard his voice in my head. "You're not cut out for this." He hired a slick lawyer who called me his tone oily, suggesting I settle to avoid embarrassment. Chase spread rumors too, whispering to reporters I was unstable, easily swayed. I stood in the cabin, the floor creaking under my pacing feet, doubt creeping in like damp through the walls. I'd always been the quiet one, the one who stepped aside. What if Chase was right? What if I lost everything, my grandfather's legacy, the elders' trust? The drum in the hidden room seemed silent now, its hum gone. I clutched the journal, my fingers tracing its worn edges, but my heart wavered. I was outmatched, just like I'd always been. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, as if the cabin itself was urging me to fight. The courtroom smelled of polished wood, the judge's gavel tapping like a metronome. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands sweaty, as Chase's lawyer painted me as fragile, unfit to manage valuable property. My lawyer from a native advocacy group squeezed my arm, her pen scratching notes. I'd brought the journal, its weight steadying me. When my turn came, I stood, my voice trembling at first. I told the court about finding the hidden room, about my grandfather's words. I opened the journal, the pages rustling, and read, "Our soul isn't in land or gold. It's in what we carry forward." My voice grew stronger, filling the room. I spoke of the retreat center, the elders' support, the kids who'd learned their language. Chase stared at the floor, his jaw tight. The judge, her glasses glinting, leaned forward. When she ruled, her gavel cracked sharp. The decedent's intent was clear. Ms. Halbrook has honored that legacy. I exhaled, the room spinning. Outside, the air was crisp, the sky wide. I held the journal to my chest, feeling my grandfather's strength, my mother's quiet love. I'd found my voice, and no one, not Chase, not doubt, could take it away. The cabin transformed before my eyes, its broken bones mended by community hands. The Halbrook Cultural Retreat opened on a crisp spring day, the air alive with laughter and sage smoke. Volunteers had rebuilt the roof, its new shingles gleaming, while the floorboards, sanded smooth, no longer groaned. Inside, Rose White Deer taught beadwork, her needle clicking, as kids threaded red and black beads. Thomas Redhawk's drum-making class filled the air with soft thuds, each beat like a heartbeat. I walked through the scent of cedar strong, watching elders share Lakota stories, their voices weaving history into the present. A young boy practicing hello in Lakota grinned at me, his tongue tripping over the syllables. I clutched my grandfather's journal, its leather warm in my hands, feeling Mom's quiet pride, her half Lakota heart finally at rest. This wasn't just a cabin anymore. It was a home for our language, our healing, our people. I stood on the porch, the wind gentle now, and looked at the mountains. For years I'd been invisible, but here, surrounded by voices and purpose, I saw myself clearly. This was my legacy, built not from money, but from love. Eli showed up one afternoon, his truck rumbling into the retreat's lot. He leaned against the door, his boots scuffing the gravel, and smiled like nothing had changed. "This place is incredible, Cami," he said, his voice soft. He hinted at a fresh start, his eyes searching mine. I remembered his words, how he'd wanted a woman who fought. I looked at the cabin, its windows glowing with lamplight, and felt no pull to go back. "Eli," I said, my voice steady. "I didn't lose myself. I found me. You wanted someone else." His smile faded, but he nodded, the gravel crunching as he walked away. I watched his truck disappear, the dust settling. Letting him go felt like shedding an old skinlight and final. I turned back to the retreat, the sound of children's laughter spilling out, and knew I was exactly where I belonged. The naming ceremony came at dusk, the sky streaked with pink. A fire crackled in the circle, its sparks dancing upward. Rose White Deer stood, her shawl rustling, and called me forward. The drumbeat pulsed low and steady as she spoke. "You've returned to us," she said. "We Akathepi, she who returns to the house." The name settled over me like a warm blanket. I faced the crowd, elders' kids, Marlene, and spoke, my voice clear. I thought I was invisible, but I just hadn't been seen by my own eyes. The fire hissed, the stars bright above. I felt my grandfather's hand, my mother's smile guiding me home. A young Lakota girl approached me at the retreat, her small hands clutching a drawing. The paper crinkled as she handed it over, a sketch of the cabin under a glowing moon, its windows bright. "My grandma says we can come here to remember," she said, her voice soft but clear. I knelt, the grass cool beneath me, and saw my reflection in her dark eyes. The retreat hummed behind us, voices weaving Lakota words, laughter rising like smoke. I tucked the drawing into my pocket, its edges soft against my fingers. This place, once broken, now held our stories, our future. I wasn't invisible anymore. That night, I sat by the fire, its crackle filling the quiet. I opened my grandfather's journal, the leather warm, and read the final page. You found the key, he wrote, not to the door, but to yourself. The words sank deep like roots. The firelight danced on the cabin walls, now strong whole. I saw Mom's smile, felt her half Lakota heart in mine. I closed the journal, the pages whispering shut. Wiyakathipi, she who returns to the house. I was home carrying my grandfather's legacy, ready for the next daughter to find hers.